So today I'm going to talk about the kneelers. Let's get the obvious out of the way up front. Yes, Trump is an authoritarian fascist. I know those terms are overused, but that's what he obviously is, just straightforwardly. Whenever a politician requests or suggests something, there is the implicit force of law behind it. And that's what Trump did. He asked for the NFL to repeatedly for them to create a rule that bans this and to fire the players who would kneel during the anthem. If he had simply said, "Look, I'm not speaking in my capacity as president. These are just my values, and I'm not trying to put the force of law behind my words. You have the right to kneel if you so choose, and the company has the right to accept or reject that or fire you for whatever reason it wishes." That would be one thing. That's not what he did. Now, on the other side, Kaepernick and the rest of the scum who are kneeling, well, why are they doing this? Well, at first, it was because of this myth of cops hunting down black people. And now it's become allegedly this anti authoritarian, anti Trump protest. That is not what is motivating it, and I think that is obvious. Politicians for a long, long time have been requesting things and making suggestions to the public. They have used their authority, or the implicit threat of authority, to get their way. There have been authoritarian politicians for a long time. But we didn't get protests until the request was not to do something anti-American. So, I have no sympathy for the kneelers, and you shouldn't either. Now, the Ayn Rand Institute has tacitly endorsed the kneelers, or implicitly endorsed them with a quote from Ayn Rand about how the Americans' response to overbearing authority is rebellion, which is a fine quote, but in this context, it obliquely, if not subtly, tacitly, obliquely, implicitly, you decide which adverb you want to use. It endorses the kneelers. Now, at some point I will have to go. I'm very tempted right now to go into everything wrong with the Ayn Rand Institute, but I will have to save that for another time. But for now, they are pandering to what is obviously an anti-American movement. This is something I have noticed that ARI's whole culture, their whole strategy is to pander to the moral mainstream. They never violate the letter of the objectivist law, but they violate the spirit through emphasis and selection. What they will do is identify some popular thought or movement and then see, is there any way we can fit objectivism into this? And often they can, as in this case. As I said, Trump is a fascist. He is an authoritarian, even unprecedented in some ways, in form. But the problem with this is that when you emphasize only one side of the coin, you send a false message. You give a false impression. And there are too many examples of this for me to name. They do this all the time. Many people associated with the Ayn Rand Institute do this. And in this case, they are aligning themselves with nihilistic scum because it's popular. This is like, okay, you're doing a model, say a climate model. And at a certain point, you have to plug in a variable that could be anywhere within a range. And so you think, well, because the government is funding my work or for ideological reasons, it would be better for me if I plug in a variable closer to this end of the spectrum of the range that I can justly choose from. And, I'm not going out of the range. So if I have to choose something, why not choose something that's in line with what I want? The problem is, if you do that, you lose the miracle of aggregation, or randomization in some sense. Because your bias injects a trend into the data. If you consistently choose to plug in a variable closer to one end than another, based on some bias you have, some desire, then over time a trend is going to appear in the model that isn't actually there, that actually just reflects your bias. And that is exactly what ARI is doing. By always choosing to go along with whatever's popular, because, hey, there's an objectivist rationale for it, and there is. Well, by always going with what's popular, you are implying that what is popular is right, but it isn't. And they neglect the other side. They do this with free speech. They do it with Trump, with anti-Americanism, with a lot of things. And this is just another example of that. They do it with the Nazis, with Antifa versus the alt-right. It's popular to be against the alt-right, so they're against the alt-right. But they don't really... they'll mention Antifa, but there's a whole different emotional level and emphasis to the condemnation of the Nazi side. All you are doing there is implying that it's okay, that there's something better about Antifa. And in this case, that it doesn't really... the anti-American side isn't that bad. What's bad is Trump. If anything, Trump is the less dangerous side. Again, I think he's dangerous, and there's only a smidge of difference between him and the kneelers. But when you just single out Trump because that's what's popular and that's what you're going to get play by doing, you send a very bad message. My strategy is exactly the opposite. I actually have a bias toward going against whatever's popular. But ARI does not, and that's a big problem. Actually, in the end, I think I'm objective and fair, and I emphasize both sides, but I think there's something cowardly about having your automatized reaction be to go with whatever's popular. I'm getting way too far into what's wrong with ARI. I just realized I'm at this crux where something occurred to me and I could just go into my whole speech about what's wrong with them. But I'm not going to do that. So, the kneelers, yes. A private company has a right to set any rules it wants. Players have a right to do whatever they want and to get fired or not if they, depending on how they act in response to the rules, or whatever. It's all free, voluntary. It should be. But the people kneeling are moron scum. As I said, we've had authoritarian political figures requesting things for a long, long time. Nobody ever went out in a mass protest until the request was, well, maybe don't disrespect the national anthem and America. Oh, well now, you're being authoritarian. Okay, if that's not transparent to you, what the true motivation here is, I don't know what to say. And as I said, the original spark for this was this myth of black people being oppressed by cops. This is, the left talks about a post-truth world, post-fact world, alternative facts. You are the people who have been talking about this for decades. Not even implicitly, explicitly. You people are the ones who have had philosophies that say there is no such thing as truth and everything is subjective. And now you want to come out and blame other people for it. You have been explicitly saying this, and now you're complaining about a post-truth world. You are the ones who don't believe in truth. And in practice, the gender pay gap, systemic racism, cops being prejudiced against black people, which none of those things are justified by the data or facts or statistics. But they don't care because it's all about how you feel. Don't you feel that this is true? Why are you invalidating my feelings? I'm a black person and I'm afraid, and it doesn't matter what the cops are actually doing because I feel it, and feeling is reality. If you feel under threat, then you are. You are the people who don't believe in objective truth. And now you have the gall to come out and criticize this alleged post-truth world. Trump is your product, you morons. It is not possible to speak about this issue calmly. So, anyway, I don't have a lot to say about this. I've said everything I have to say. Both sides are wrong, but as usual, the worse side is being cut slack by even the people who know better. And that is a big problem. So, in conclusion, I hate everyone, and that's it.